Followers and subscribers, welcome back to Beating the Press podcast. I am your host, Rafa. Now, coming up in this evening's podcast, we have two big matches coming up on the weekend. Arsenal takes on the resurgent Manchester United, and over there at Newcastle, they play host to Aston Villa. Now, joining me this evening to preview these matches and to talk some EPL football, we have returning to the podcast, Christoph.
Good to be back, viewers.
Yes, Christoph, we had another week of Champions League action, and the English teams are getting the business done over there in the Champions League. Talk to us about the prospects of the English teams, Christoph. Can they actually lift the Champions League title this year, or is it a case of they're going through a purple patch at the moment?
Um, it it could be both. The English teams can, you could say, going through a purple patch, but I think it's more a case of the Champions League currently suiting the English teams because of the attacking. With in England, like I said last week, a lot more teams are playing defensive and low blocking and mid block. That is not the case in the Champions League, and definitely not the case currently in the group stage when teams need to try and get enough points to make it either into the top eight or make it into the playoffs to move to the next round. So the games are a lot more open and teams can really play more attacking football and express themselves versus trying to break down a low block.
Indeed, that's a shrewd assessment, Christoph, and I think you're spot on in your analysis. Much more open games over there in the Champions League compared to when we watch a regular EPL fixture. It's whoever team is the better team, they usually have to fight hard to break down a stubborn defensive wall. Coaches are not taking any chances. They rather leave opposition stadium with a point than with a loss, so to speak. But Christoph, we turn our attention to one of the big matches on display come the weekend. Manchester United destroyed Man City last week. They now turn their attention to Arsenal, the league leaders, Arsenal, Christoph. How are you seeing this match? Can Arsenal maintain their lead at the top of the tree, or will Manchester United peg them back?
I mean, technically, regardless of the result, Arsenal remain top of the table over the weekend. It's more a matter of does that lead, do they maintain that point gap? Does it decrease? Does it increase depending on the Man City result? Um, I think this is given, Man United somewhat resurgent. This is potentially a tough game already because, like I've said before, in this particular game, Manchester United always seems to find form regardless of how bad or they are playing, throughout the season. I think this is a tough game. I think they'll try to play it similar to how they played Manchester United, where they're going to potentially try to clog up the midfield and mid
Oh, you
and
mean
low
you,
block
you mean you mean Man City, similar
Man
to how they
City.
played Man City last week.
Similar to how they played Man City last week. They're going to clog the midfield, mid, low block, and then try to play on the counter attack. Because, honestly, that is the only way that Manchester United can score. Resurgent or not, they scored both their goals on the counter attack last weekend, and even
But I mean, they
we
created numerous other chances though, Christoph,
yeah,
outside of the counter.
they
I mean,
created
they
the
scored the two
chances.
on the counter, but
Right, they
a few
created it.
chances were created in open play
They,
as well.
they they created the chances to open play, but they didn't score. And you can go back to even Sir Alex Ferguson. Majority of United goals throughout the years have come from counter-attacking football. And that is what I expect to see. They're not going to try and outplay Arsenal.
So
They're
is
going
it a
to try
case
and
of
counter.
counter-attacking football versus set play in this game, Christoph? I mean, we see a large percentage of the Arsenal goals coming from set pieces, corner, free kicks. So will it be a case of set piece versus counter?
No, I don't know. People have Arsenal has indeed scored a lot of set pieces, but Arsenal is also facing a lot of low and mid blocks, and that is simply a way of bypassing the block. You don't have to deal with a low block if
Well, I
you're
mean,
scoring set pieces. So um will
well, I mean,
Arsenal
no one
score a
is really
set piece?
accusing Arsenal of not scoring. I'm just saying, from a statistical point of view, a large chunk of their goal tally is from set
Well,
plays. So they are a
what
pretty
percent
dangerous team from set
what
plays at the
what
moment.
what percentage is a large chunk?
I would say one third. It would be a large third, 30%, 33%. I'm not currently sure of the current statistics as it relates to the distribution of goals, but I know own goals, Christoph, was probably Arsenal leading scorer up until recent time.
I believe Arsenal have that total of maybe three own goals in their favor this season.
Ah, no man, no man. Check the stats. Own goal was the leading scorer up until maybe a few weeks ago. I'm not sure if OG has been overtaken, to be honest, but I know for a fact own goal was right up there in the ranks in terms of the leading individual scorer for Arsenal. But that's a stat you can check on in the interim. But in terms of this game, though, I mean, we are seeing, I'm not sure if it's a one-off from Manchester United. This game will tell us the tale of the tapes. Is it a one-off that we saw a very good Manchester United team versus Man City? Can they translate over that sort of gameplay versus Arsenal? This game is, of course, an away fixture for Manchester United as well. Obviously, I think Arsenal should be the one taking the game to Manchester United. But my thinking at the moment, though, Christoph, is will Arteta be more pragmatic? Will Arteta actually sit behind the ball and force Manchester United to attack them? And then Arsenal is the one who plays on the counter. Do you think Arteta will be thinking along those lines where he'd rather take a draw than go for the win?
No, the game is being played at the Emirates. I don't think they're going to play it that manner. That to me that makes partial sense. But again, like I said, I don't think attacking wise or creation wise, United are very good. We have to also take into account in the City game there were a number of City players injured, specifically defensively. City is not the best defensively since
Well, I
last
mean,
season.
City did shore up their defense by bringing in Gay.
Gay didn't
Uh,
play.
you're right, but in general, just looking at it going forward. So, yeah, while they may have been short-staffed versus Manchester United, of course, City again. I mean, we mentioned that the English teams have been doing well over there in Europe, but City was one of the shock teams, Christoph, that suffered a big defeat at the
Heavy
hands of
defeat.
at the hands of both Glynn. So while the other English teams took care of business, City is now on back-to-back defeats to Manchester United, and now another defeat over there in Europe. Lucky for them, though, they returned to the EPL by taking on Wolves, the league's worst team at the moment, and you could say the first team to be relegated. I don't see any way back for Wolves. So this game should probably act as some sort of confidence booster for Man City, and probably try to put some pressure on Arsenal if indeed Manchester United can pull another rabbit out of the hat. But Christoph, I mean, in terms of your predicted scoreline, what is your thought process as it relates to the predicted scoreline in this one?
I think I will go with a 3-1 or 3-2 in favor of Arsenal for this one.
Oh, so you're definitely banking on Arsenal to take the win then.
I think Arsenal takes the win. However, United very good on the counter attack. I think they could potentially get a goal or two in this game, but I think Arsenal will take this game.
So you seem to have lost a bit of faith in the Arsenal defense over the last couple of weeks, Christoph.
So at the beginning of the season, the defense was definitely a bit more solid. I don't know if it's a
So what
case
changed
of
though? What has changed? I mean, are
uh
we are is it a case of fatigue, injury, rotation? What have you discerned
it's
from the fact that Arsenal have been conceding, I would say the first half of the season compared to the other half that we're in now, it's been night and day from a defensive point of view for Arsenal
so,
in terms of
so there
conceding
are
goals.
there are a number of things that I believe have led to this. Firstly, would be like I said, injuries. Um, a bit of chopping and changing in the defense a little bit later in the season now. Uh, Somebody like Timber has had a lot of minutes. Calafiori has been out for a number of games now. Um, One of the big things that people probably don't talk about or don't see is that at the beginning of the season, um, Arsenal would the defense would split. Gabriel and Saliba would split, but um, what's the name? Zubamende would drop in between the middle of them. So you would have those three back protecting the defense. But now as the season progresses and teams are doing more low blocks and mid blocks, you have had to commit more players forward in order to get those overloads against the low blocks. So Zuamendi has pushed forward and it's left space in behind for counter attacks and so on. But for me, I think probably the biggest reason is that Arsenal, a lot of these goals are conceded late in games, and Arsenal, the concentration drops a lot. And specifically, the concentration about William Saliba does tend to drop because a lot of those goals do seem to come from his side.
Interesting analysis there. But so this would definitely play into the hands of Manchester United, a team that plays on the counter and a team that has quality in depth off the bench. Last game, I was surprised personally that Cunha, Christoph, did not start. Will we see a similar starting 11 from Carrick? I wouldn't change it. I got success versus Man City. Man City and Arsenal, you could say, play a similar style. So I would keep the winning formula going and then, of course, have my backup Cunha on the bench who I can unleash on the low concentration that, as you said, Saliba is showing late in games.
I mean, yeah, that is a possibility. It depends on the approach that Carrick will take. I do think he will take a counter-attacking approach, but we don't know if that might be different on the day.
To be
But
honest, I am more concerned about the approach Arteta will take, Christoph. We have seen where Arteta have taken backward steps, sit deep, allow teams to play, and they play on the counter. So to me, I am actually more concerned about the Arteta approach as opposed to the Carrick approach. I expect Manchester United to play as they did versus City. Energy, pace, it's a completely transformed team. And of course, we know the impact of the new coach bounce. I mean, with this United team, it is no different. So Arsenal definitely have to be on the top of their game if they're gonna get something from this one. Because for me, Christoph, I am gonna call this one in favor of Manchester United, to be honest with you. Uh, based on what I saw versus Man City, if Manchester United can replicate that performance, Arsenal is in trouble. If they can replicate that performance. So that is the big question for me looking at this game. Can Man United replicate, come close to, or even surpass the performance they put in versus City? If they can replicate, I think Arsenal is in deep trouble in this one. And I don't believe they will escape the Emirates with all 3 points. I think the 3 points may very well be headed to Old Trafford. So for me, Christoph, I am going to back the new man on the block. I am going to back Carrick to take another big scalp. When I look at the statistics and the teams that Carrick has won his games as interim Manchester United manager, it's all big names. The names are the top coaches that are around at the time. And I think he's gonna take the scalp of Arteta this weekend as well. So for me, I am gonna call this one 2 goals to 1. They would have had all week to prepare for this game while Arsenal was playing in Europe. They should be fresher, fitter, more enthused, and full of confidence. So for me, Christoph, I'm gonna call this one 2-1 to Manchester United. 2-1 is my call for Manu.
okay.
But we move. And another big game on the block is Aston Villa, third place Aston Villa takes on Newcastle. Newcastle getting a big win over there in Europe. They return to their home territory for this EPL fixture. Aston Villa is the away team in this one. Newcastle playing host. What says you about this game? Will it be another predictable Newcastle where they play in Europe midweek, Christoph, and then they lose on the weekend? Or can they find something this time around versus what looks to be a very fatigued and shallow Aston Villa team in terms of shallow in terms of squad depth? Not much quality on the bench to really bring in. I saw an article, Christoph, where they have cancelled the loan move of Leon Bailey over there in Italy, and he is now returning to bolster that squad.
That is,
Can this move bring some success for not only Leon Bailey, but can he boost the Aston Villa prospects?
I mean, I don't really know how was Leon Bailey getting on in Italy.
Ah, well, I think for the majority of that loan, he may have been injured and are given limited runs in the team.
Okay, well, I don't know. I mean, Aston Villa also sold Danny Mallan and haven't really brought in anybody, so I don't know.
Well, it could be a case where Marlon out, Bailey in. That seemed to be the
Seem
case.
seem like a strange thing to do. But I guess that maybe the funding is low and they have to balance the
Yeah,
books to
I
kind
think
of.
they're battling with PSR. So in terms of splashing the cash, they are probably very limited in that regard. So I mean, Marlon wasn't really ripping up any trees either. So maybe Emery did his assessment and possibly realized that Leon Bailey may be a better bet than a Marlon. Plus, as I said, with financial fair play, the sale of Marlon does bring some money into the coffers that could potentially offset some other players coming in as well. So it's not only playing on the field, Christoph, but it's the inner workings in the back room as well. And of course, the financial fair play does come into effect as it relates to participation in Europe and indeed in the EPL. So I am not sure. Aston Villa has a decent first 11, but beyond that, they may very well struggle to maintain the levels if they were to rotate in any shape or form, and or if they pick up any serious injuries to any of their top players. But that being said, Christoph, that being said, can Aston Villa get a win versus Newcastle at home this weekend?
So, so far we've seen where Newcastle plays in Europe, then they go out on the weekend and drop the points. But in this instance, they're playing at home.
Yeah,
Um,
that's my consideration as well. Will the home come first change anything in that cycle? That is the
right.
question.
I think for right now, I will go with Aston Villa to win or a draw for this game. I think Aston Villa to win 2-1, or it will end in a 1-1 draw.
So I'm gonna go the opposite of your call, Christoph. And the reason is I think this Aston Villa team has plateaued and they're now on the downward trajectory because of the lack of squad depth.
Okay.
That run they went on really took it out of them. And I think they've run out of gas, is pretty much what I'm saying. They're gonna limp to the line is what I am thinking. In fact, if they don't bolster that squad, I don't think they will finish in the top five with Manchester United and Liverpool pressing hard. I don't think this Aston Villa team, if the squad is not bolstered, will finish in the Champions League position as they now occupied. I think that run, that unbeaten run of maybe what 20 games, Christoph, or somewhere close to that number, really took it out of them. And now they've plateaued and they're now on a downward trajectory. And I think this game comes at the perfect time for Newcastle. So for me, I think Newcastle is the fresher team. They have that Jardy crowd behind them at home. A few players have rounded into form as well. Wissa, their new signing, has been getting on the score sheet. Voltamad seemed to have been relegated to the bench. Garden, and Barnes seem to be picking up their scoring boots as well. And of course, you have that solid midfield led by Guimaraes, their captain. Joe Linton as well is in that midfield. Energy players, physical players. I think they will be too strong for this Aston Villa team. And I'm going to back Newcastle to win this game 2 goals to 1. What says you in terms of a scoreline though? Or did
I
you mention that already?
I did mention scoreline. I think it's 2-1 to Aston Villa or a
2-1 to Aston Villa.
1-1-1 or a 1-1 draw.
So you're looking at a scoring draw. Both teams to score then would be a safe bet, Christoph. In your book, of course.
Yeah, I think potentially.
Mm. All right, no problem, no problem. For sure, that's definitely a game that I'll be locking into and seeing what's going on over there in that one. But we have a number of other big fixtures on the horizon as well, Christoph. I'm just gonna go through the list of fixtures and you give us your quick take on these games. The first one we have here is West Ham versus Sunderland. West Ham at home versus Sunderland.
Um, Sunderland 2-0.
Sunderland 2-0. Wow. 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 That is a big call. West Ham have been poor all season, in all honesty. Sunderland has been a solid surprise addition to the EPL, Christoph. They've been on the rise. West Ham pulling out a couple of wins lately. Sunderland getting back their players from the African Cup of Nations, and that squad should be bolstered. So, hmm, this is going to be an interesting fixture, to be honest with you. I'm gonna side with Sunderland as well. I'm gonna side with Sunderland, but I think it's gonna be a close game. But I'm gonna back Sunderland. I just think West Ham is on a poor run. Inconsistent. Yo-yo, win some today, lose some tomorrow. Sunderland is the more consistent of the team, so I'm gonna go with a Sunderland win also, and I'm going to go 1-0 to Sunderland, Christoph. 1-0 to Sunderland. Then we have Burnley versus Spurs. Burnley at home versus Spurs. What says you?
Uh, Spurs should be winning. Burnley looks like they're going to get relegated as well. But last week I said they had a game that they should be winning, but that again the potential to be Spursy. Thomas Frank looking, I guess his job is somewhat under fire, looking a bit shaky in recent weeks. But Spurs to win this one, 2 or 3-0.
Who are 3-0? Wow, I mean, remember Burnley did hold Liverpool to a draw last week as well,
I,
Christoph,
I
away
don't think
from
that
home also.
I don't think that's significant.
Mm. So you don't think they have it in them to get a
No,
Spurs scalp?
no.
Wow, I'm gonna back Burnley. I'm gonna back Burnley. I don't have much faith in this first team, to be honest with you. And as you said, Thomas Frank is under pressure. They also played midweek over there in Europe versus Dortmund. They did get a win versus 10-man Dortmund, a dubious tackle leading to a red card for one of the Dortmund players. So Dortmund for the majority of that game was playing with 10 men. Spurs did pick up a good win, scored 2 solid goals, did not concede, but as I mentioned, it was versus 10. Burnley getting a draw versus Liverpool, return home now for this fixture. And I think this might be a good time to be playing Spurs, in all honesty. Uh, the confidence in that Spurs team may be very low. And of course, if Burnley was to get the first goal, you may hear the chance of you're getting sacked in the morning coming from the terraces, Christoph. So for me, I'm gonna go with a Burnley win, in all honesty. I think Burnley may very well get the first goal. We hear those songs coming from the terraces, and these Spurs players just become very Spursy and end up losing this one. So for me, Burnley to win 2 goals to 1. Burnley to win 2 goals to 1 is my call. Then we have Fulham versus Brighton. Fulham at home versus Brighton.
Um, Again, like we say every week, Brighton is just so hard to call. You don't know what you're going to get on the day, right? Fulham, really should be winning at home, but it is so difficult to call with Brighton.
I mean, with a game so close, in my opinion, the best call is down the middle. Call it a draw. So for me, I'm gonna call it a draw. I'm gonna go with a 2-2 draw. Harry Wilson seemed to have cooled off at of late, but he has been probably Fulham's best player. Iwobi should be back, Christoph. So that should bolster the Fulham squad as well. So I think they may have a goal or two in them, but similarly, Brighton may have a goal or two in them as well. This is a very hard game to call, in all honesty. So I'm just gonna go on the fence and call a draw. I'm gonna go with a 2-2 draw.
I think that's a fair result.
Mm. So you're also agreeing with the draw then?
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move. Then we have Man City versus Wolves. Can Man City return to winning ways after losing versus United and being turned over in Europe as well? Can they beat? I mean, to be honest, Christoph, Wolves have been playing some better football. They haven't been getting the result, but they have been playing some better football, to be honest with you. So while this looks like a no-brainer call on paper, Wolves could potentially upset the apple cart. But personally, I don't see it happening. But the ball is round. For me, I'm gonna have to definitely back Man City to get out of that rut. I think they have too many quality players versus a poor Wolves team, and this game is also at the Etihad. So for me, I'm gonna go 2 goals to nil to Man City, Christoph. 2 goals to nil.
Yeah, I think that's a fair call. I think, like you said, it could be a potentially tougher game than one might expect. Wolves does or has been playing better. They're defending better, but obviously you're still bottom of the table, right? They did get one win. They have one win so far this season. But I think ultimately, yeah, Man City, the quality that they have will kind of shine through in this one, regardless of if the defense is kind of bare bones at the moment. Players like a Rodri and a Haaland probably need to redeem themselves after the midweek
Yeah, and we
shambles,
might see Gehi making his debut as well. So
right?
that will not surprise me for sure. Alain, he has been making a few mistakes, made some huge errors over there in Europe, and he didn't cover himself in glory versus Manchester United either. So you may see Gehi making his debut. Of course, Semenyo has been on fire since the start of the season and since his transfer to Man City as well. So his good rich farm has continued from his exploits over there at Bournemouth. So for sure, the two January signings, Christoph, may very well get the opportunity to play in their first game together. So it would not surprise me if those two players start for Man City. But the quality is too much. I don't see any win for Wolves, but I think it won't necessarily be a blowout for Man City coming off the poor form they have been displaying and possibly the lack of confidence in that team at the moment. So, as I said, for me, 2 goals to nil. What was the scoreline you gave?
Yeah, I think two nil is a fair thing. I think they might get more though. I think I'll put it at 4-0.
4-0. Wow, that's a
Yeah, I
big
think
call
so.
right there.
I think 4-0. Yeah.
4-0. Mm. The next game we have on the agenda, Bournemouth versus Liverpool. Bournemouth at home versus Liverpool. Liverpool, of course, coming off a draw versus Burnley, but then redeeming themselves over there in Europe versus Marseille. Some time ago, Christoph, we spoke about set piece specialists. And are there any out and out set piece specialists in the EPL? Players who can clip it in from corners, but also they can kick it in from directly from free kicks. And Soboslai Christoph seemed to be setting himself apart in the EPL as well as over there in Europe. He carved out another very intelligent free kick versus Marseille in the Champions League fixture. And as I said, he seemed to be one of those standout set piece takers in the EPL at the moment. I can't name many more who have punched it in at this level of frequency that I'm seeing Soberslay hits the target as well as scores from free kicks. Can you think of any name off the top of your hand at the moment?
No, not at the moment.
So There you go. But this is another interesting fixture. Liverpool draw, draw, draw. That has been Liverpool's farm. Can they pick up a win versus Bournemouth? You could say somewhat depleted Bournemouth without their top goal scorer now gone to Man City. How are you calling this one?
Um, it's a game where Liverpool should be looking to pick themselves up. Bournemouth is in 15th place, just above relegation, and the form obviously is not great. They have one win in the last five, I believe, a couple of draws and a loss. So Liverpool, having come off that game against Marseille, could be a confidence booster. Salah is back. Uh, since he played at Marseille, I would assume that he's going to play on the weekend again. And, it could be the boost that Liverpool need to kind of kick on and get results going forward for the remainder of the season.
Indeed, possibly, quite possibly, um, that might be the case. Yeah, for sure, Liverpool should be aiming to pick up all 3 points. And at the moment, I personally am not very confident in this Liverpool team. But what I would say, Christoph, I have been looking at the farm guide in the EPL, and really, no team in the league, Christoph, is in farm.
That's what I said last
Absolutely
week.
no team in the league is in form. No team at the moment has back-to-back wins. I'm not sure if I've ever seen that before in the EPL, but no team in the league currently has back-to-back wins where you could say this is an informed team. So currently, any card can play, really, to be honest with you. Any card can play. And I would definitely not write off this Bournemouth team. In fact, it would not surprise me if they were to pick up a win versus Liverpool. They really pushed Liverpool to the brink in the first game of the season when they took Liverpool on at Anfield. Liverpool managed to get the win in that fixture, but of course, their defense was exposed. Will their defense be exposed again? We saw over there in the Champions League, Gomez partnered Van Dijk. Will Kanate be back? These are some interesting questions that Slot need to answer. Can Salah find some form? He did score a few goals over there in the AFCON, but he has been, what should I say, scoreless in the EPL, of probably his longest run in many a year, Christoph, without scoring a goal or even providing an assist. So these are some interesting questions that will need to be answered. But all of that said, I'm gonna go 2-1 Liverpool. What's your call?
I think 2-1 is a fair thing, but I would probably say 3-1 to Liverpool.
3-1 to Liverpool is the call.
Right.
Then we have Brentford versus Forest. Brentford versus Forest.
Brentford, they did lose their last game, but aside from that, they're in decent form. They should beat Nottingham Forest, who have, 1-1 in the last five and a number of losses. Form is a bit spotty, but they should it is a game they should win. I would
I'm
say I
gonna
would
go for a
2-0
1-1 draw
Brentford.
in this one.
I
One
will go 2-0 Brentford.
2-0 Brentford. I'm gonna go 1-1 in that one, a draw. Then we have Crystal Palace versus Chelsea. Crystal
Um,
Palace at home versus Chelsea.
Crystal Palace has really dropped off, given how they started the season, how they were playing for a good while. They went undefeated for a number of games early on in the season, but they've dropped off. I think Chelsea will win this. They'll take the confidence from their last win, confidence from their win in Europe, and get the result in this one.
I am calling this one 2-1 in favor of Chelsea, Christoph. 2-1 in favor of Chelsea, yeah. For sure, Crystal
I
Palace have definitely dropped off somewhat.
I don't know. Did Crystal Palace score in their last game?
I don't believe so, to be
I
honest.
I think I will go with 2-0 to Chelsea for this one.
2-0 to Chelsea. Wow, that is a big call right there.
Right.
And then the final game, we have that one coming up on Monday. That game is, let's see who that game is. That game is Everton versus Leeds. Everton versus Leeds. Everton at home versus Leeds.
Everton, a game, based on the table, a game that Everton uh, should be winning, but there is also the potential for this to be a draw, especially because I believe Jack Grealish is injured, and he has been Everton's top goal contributor so far this season. So the game itself could be a bit more difficult for Everton in this one. So I think it's either Everton win, but I feel like a draw is very likely on this one. So I'll go with a 1-1 draw.
1-1 draw is your call. I'm gonna go for an Everton win. I think Everton could possibly peg this one 1-0. I think it will be a close game, but Everton to win 1-0. But quickly, Christoph, we're running out of time. Any final thoughts as it relates to this week action coming up over the weekend? Any quick final thoughts?
Looking forward to a couple of these fixtures. Obviously, the highlight of the weekend is going to be Arsenal versus United, and hopefully we don't see any more dubious refereeing decisions like we saw last week.
Well, there you have it, viewers and subscribers. There you have it. Christoph appealing for as it relates to the refereeing decisions. I second that thought process. But viewers and subscribers, that's all the time we have. Thanks again for tuning into us here on Beating the Press podcast. Of course, please leave your comments in the comment section. Can Manchester United beat Arsenal is the question that will be answered this weekend. Continue to support us, of course, by sharing, liking, and if you haven't subscribed as yet, hit that subscription bell. But until next time, this is Rafa signing off.